Hello, my name is NJ Franco, and these are my thoughts on the Heroes of Olympus, The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. So, first off, this is a sequel series to Percy Jackson and the Olympians. However, this series, at least so far, doesn't so much follow Percy Jackson like Percy Jackson and the Olympians did. And at least as far as book one goes, it follows three new demigods named Jason, Leo, and Piper as they go on their first quest to go rescue the goddess Hera and do other things. So if you really enjoyed Percy Jackson and the Olympians and you're like, ooh, I want to read more about Percy, at least as far as book one goes so far, Percy is kind of like non-existent. So if you wanted to read more Percy, it's not so much Percy Jackson so far in the series. Maybe further on down the road. I don't know. I haven't finished the series yet. But as far as book one goes, there's not that much Percy Jackson mentioned in it. But it still has the Greek gods and demigods and Camp Half Blood and all that stuff. All those other elements and many of the other characters from Percy Jackson and the Olympians are referenced in The Lost Hero. But again, Percy Jackson is no longer the main focus. Now, one thing I really liked about The Lost Hero is I now have a new favorite Greek god. So, my favorite Greek god for the longest time used to be Poseidon. Even before I read Percy Jackson and the Olympians, I always liked Poseidon. But now I have a new favorite Greek god, and that is Hephaestus, okay? Mostly because of the Hephaestus cabin. Because all the campers in the Hephaestus cabin, all their bunks come in with a built-in stereo and a gaming system, a refrigerator. All these cool electronics are built into their bunks, and furthermore, their bunks can like corkscrew or like basically disappear into the floors and have their own private room underneath the cabin. So I'm just mad jealous of the Hephaestus campers. I kind of like their bunks, and I want one for my house, to be honest with you. But along with that, I can somewhat relate to Hephaestus because as my day job, I work as a welder. And Hephaestus is the Greek god of fire and blacksmithing. And as far as I know, there is not a Greek god of welding. I can't imagine that there would be. So I guess I would kind of have to settle with Hephaestus, the Greek god of fire and blacksmithing, as being my close enough to being the Greek god of welding. So, on the note of having a new favorite Greek god, there are many more gods in The Lost Hero that were not mentioned in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Now, many of the gods that were mentioned in Percy Jackson and the Olympians are mentioned in The Lost Hero, but there are also some new gods that weren't mentioned in that series. And that's what I really enjoyed about Percy Jackson was learning about all the different Greek gods. So now that The Lost Hero has even more gods I didn't even know existed, I'm really enjoying learning about them too. For instance, Hypno, the Greek god of sleep. Apparently that's a thing, so that kind of shocked me. But along with just the Greek gods, Rick Riordan has started to introduce the Roman gods into the mix as well, and talks about how the Greek and Roman gods are kind of like counterparts to each other, like Zeus and Jupiter, Neptune and Poseidon, Vulcan and Hephaestus. Each Greek god, as far as I know, has a Roman counterpart to each other. So I'm really enjoying learning about not only the Greek gods, but also now the Roman gods as well and how they relate to each other. So now that I've talked about all the things about the book that I enjoyed, here are the two negatives I have about the book, okay? So first off, the final fight with the big bad, they spent the entire book, building up to this big bad and whatnot, and when they finally get to it, and they finally fight the dang thing, it was like it was over before you even knew it. It was like just lackluster, and wasn't even was like, I was reading the book and I'm like, wait, that's it? The battle's over already? Oh, okay, what the heck? And what really gets me is the fight before that one, the last battle before you get to the big bad, the mini boss, if you will, before you get to the main boss. That one was much more epic. Everyone was involved. There was tactics, and it was all drawn out, and it was like really cool. But you expect the final boss to be even more like epic, but no, the fight before the big boss, that was more epic than the actual final fight, and I was just kind of like let down by it. Now the other negative about the book is the chapter naming, or arguably lack thereof. So each of the chapters in The Lost Hero are named after one of the characters, either Jason, Leo, or Piper, depending on which one it focuses on. Now, with me, I like when books name their chapters to kind of like hint at what's going on, what's going to be happening in that chapter. Like with Percy Jackson, the Olympians, Rick Riordan would name the chapters like I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher, or I get dumped, or something like that, and you see that title, and you're like, ooh, I wonder what's gonna happen in this chapter that's kind of like relate to that, or kind of like give me a hint. I like those hints. I understand some people might not, but I like those. So when just to find out, when I read this book that each of the chapters were named after one of the characters and didn't really hint too much of what was going on in that chapter, I didn't like that. I can understand people how people would prefer that, but me personally, I like well thought out chapter names. So I was kind of let down to find out that that wasn't the case with this, but to each their own. That's just my thing. But anyway, I really did enjoy The Lost Hero. I'm definitely going to continue reading uh, Heroes of Olympus. I'm going to take a mini break. I'm going to switch to another book, but I will definitely be back to finishing this series, as time goes on. But yeah, super excited to finish the series, and yeah, loved it.